Hey, hello, my name is Katie. I'm a live event illustrator from the UK, and I also run a business teaching or helping illustrators in their creative careers. I'm an accumulator. It's in my top three. I can't remember which way around they go, but I'm also a maverick and a ruler. So I feel the ruler struggle as well.
Was there anything surprising, or when you found out that you were an accumulator, and also some of the things that we talk about, of sometimes penny pinching ways and being how frugality can really impact accumulators to grow their business. Was there anything that was a big aha for you around learning some of that?
Good question. And definitely, I think like when I found out accumulator was in my top three, so many things from my life made sense, because there was things like there was a time that I was fired from my job and I had no money, but I kind of felt like, well, I can survive on nothing, so that's fine. I don't need a job. And then when I was a nanny in Germany for a long time, and I didn't open a bank account. I just kept my money in my sock drawer because I was like, I can see my money here and I don't need to like trust. And you had to pay €10 a month to have a bank account. That was the thing. And I was like, I'm not paying to have a bank account. Like, that is ridiculous. But now in my business, I find it's really helpful because it helps me, like I find it really easy to invest in my business because I feel like, oh, well, that's going to come back to me tenfold. Whereas I still struggle a little bit on the like personal front to buy things that are just for myself, that like feel frivolous or like extra that I don't need. Whereas if it's my business, I'm like, well, it's a business expense, so it's totally fine. So it means like when a business is concerned, everything's like bougie and extra and like the best of everything. And then at home, I'm like, oh, we don't need that. Like, just get the no frills version, or like, let's cut back on this. So yeah, it's funny. It's like, I feel like it's evolving as I go. So yeah, like business expenses are okay.
I want to hear a story from your childhood, because did your accumulator part show up in it? And I'm just going to turn my aircon off. Hang on. So even though I did business up top, I still am wearing my shorts below. I couldn't help it. I was like, should I wear some trousers for this? So, did your family have a nickname for you around your frugality? Were there accumulator habits that you could see coming up as a kid? Were there things that your friends teased you about around your frugality? Or is there something that really sticks out in your mind that really showcases you as a little baby accumulator?
Oh, it's so good hearing everybody's stories of like being baby accumulators. So there's two that come to mind. So my dad, who's definitely an accumulator, by the way, he's like the world's biggest accumulator. Anyway, he, for our pocket money, we got 20 pence a week. This is in the 90s, so it was probably still quite low for then. But anyway, it was 20 pence a week, and he kept like a spreadsheet in the back of his diary, and you could go to him and see how many weeks it had been since you last got your pocket money. So it was brilliant, really, because the lesson there was like, like if you don't talk to dad about pocket money for a few weeks, it'll have piled up and there'll be like £1 and you can go to the sweetie shop and buy loads of sweets or something. So yeah, I just remember like getting really good at like waiting, and then I'd be like, oh, it's been 6 months. Come on, dad. How many 20 pences is that? That's got to be so many. So that was brilliant. And then also, I think it was Steph, you mentioned prom dresses. So I remember for my prom, like it's strange because I don't think my parents were poor. Like my mum and dad got divorced now, like, so my mum was a single mum, but she had a decent job and things. I don't know. Anyway, I remember for my prom dress going to Asda, which is like the UK's bargain supermarket. And I bought, it was like a little white dress with like little embroidered bits and some ribbon and some dye, and we like dyed it green and sewed ribbons on his straps. And I just thought this was incredible. I was like, I have made the best prom dress myself, and it cost like £16. And I was, yeah, like people were talking about spending £100 on their dress, and I felt so like superior because I was like, mine was £16 and I look amazing. Like it was just very much like baby accumulator, out of control. But it was creative as well. So
the next thing I'd want to get everyone to ask, and so we're going Steph, Jenny, Lennis, Katie, and Susan, you're going last on this one, is finding out about some of your other archetypes and letting them come in. I want to hear what that has shifted and changed in your business. So Susan, you already talked to about how you hired someone in your business to take that out, but is there something that you've shifted around the clients you've worked with, and feel free to post this in the comments too if you think of things, multiple things that you want to say around it. But it's like, did you shift your clients? Did you shift your marketing or your pricing or your business model? We've mentioned that before too. Knowing that you don't have to just be in your accumulator side all the time in your business.
Yeah, so I think one of the main shifts was getting my accumulator out of the wallets of my clients, and to stop assuming that everyone wants the rock bottom price and the best deal and a sale. Like, as soon as I could let that go, and it was kind of a maverick thing, I was like, you know what, let's charge a day rate that's 10 times what I was told at university and college was I was allowed to charge, like 10x it, see what happens. Worst case scenario, one person hires me, but then I've made like 10 times the amount. And you know what, I did that, and more people hired me, and I was more in demand, and it was like this snowball effect. And then my accumulator obviously was really happy, because it was like, oh my goodness, now we need to like read about profit first and like put the money into the right pots and get it all lined up and beautiful in the spreadsheet. So yeah, I think my maverick really helped with that, and my ruler was really helpful with like keeping going and researching all the boring stuff like SEO and like how to get clients and all of and like writing the boring SEO blog posts and like, yeah. But I think, yeah, the main one there was getting out of the client's pocket and just setting a price, picking a price. And like you said, Denise, like just pick a price. It's not like carved into stone. And I've been at a price now that it's felt good for like a year. But before that, I was like, let's double that. Let's double that. Let's double that again. And it was like just the incremental price increases were really interesting. But now I feel really happy at this price. And it feels like clients, I'll get a lot of, no, that's too expensive, but I'm totally used to it now. And then when people say, yes, it's a really good fit and we work really well together, and they're hiring me because I'm an expert and I've got that consultant vibe of like, it's a VIP one-on-one done for you sort of thing. So yeah, it feels really good. Like, I think it's really helped me to be really happy in my business and feel valued and well rewarded financially for what I do, which is the dream, really.
So one thing for me is I am not precise. You guys know this, right? I never know the dates. I never know the details of things. I never know how much things are going to cost, because Mark deals with that and I cannot keep it in my brain. So I'm always surprised that accumulators buy from me. I really am. And but the last round we did SMA, accumulators were the top, and they're always in the top 3, which really surprises me, because surely I annoy your accumulator side.
Yeah, it was the same for me, I think, as well. Like, accumulator style, I'd been reading and devouring anything that you put out, Denise, that was free. And like the books, and I'd read it all and done it all, and then I did the quiz, and then there was the deal with, like Jenny was saying, the deal of bootcamp and SMA, and I couldn't afford the whole thing at the time because I hadn't started making money yet really properly, but it was the payment plans worked, and so I was like totally in. And then also knowing there was the money back guarantee thing as well, like ticked a box. I was like, I feel safe, okay, let's do it.
What really annoys you about the entrepreneurial world or the personal development world, and what's something that always turns you off from buying a program? Like, what are your red flags, or what are your things where you just go, oh my God, I don't trust that person? And then I have a question as well, if anyone wants to speak to this. Is it important to you to know that, for example, I have a marketing degree? What turns you off? What's really important to you that we haven't heard so far? Like, what makes you trust people and what makes you immediately skeptical? Because there are a lot of people in this world who are so wishy-washy, and it can be really annoying. So I'd love to hear some specifics. Who's got something that they can think of straight away?
Yeah, it's not even, I think it's like a vibe that you get. Like, sometimes with entrepreneurs and online sellers, it's so glossy and it's so like unrelated. Like, I know Susan mentioned relatability, like buying from a human is really important. And like, even horrible things like, when you get like the upsell and the bump and the offer, and it's like, oh my God, just let me out of this horrible thing, I don't want to buy anything. There was none of that kind of feeling, which really helped as well. And it was almost just like a nice a nice, kind feeling rather than a salesy bro entrepreneur thing going on.
And then the other thing, if anyone's got a thing on this, sometimes what we do with the payment plan is in our like autoresponder sequence at about month 2 or 3, we let people pay it off in full if they want to. And so they don't have to pay that extra finance fee, which we do, we have to pay because it costs us a bomb to offer payment plans. You can imagine like the chasing and, all of that.
Yeah, I did that. I remember, I think I either got the email or like Money Bootcamp was helping so much that I could pay it off around, maybe it was like month 6 or month 7. And it felt, the accumulator was so happy because I was like, I'm not paying the transaction fee or whatever, the extra fee, and I'm paying it off and I don't have to think about it anymore. So I'm like technically $200 richer per month. It was so good. And yeah, I think that was a great initiative for the accumulator.
Just if anyone wants to share on this one, how do you research whether to join a program? Do you watch reviews? Because obviously a lot of you guys have talked about, I did every video, I read every email, I looked at all the detail. And as I said before, sometimes too many testimonials turns off the Mavericks because they're like, well, whatever. But I've also heard that testimonials make you skeptical because it's like, oh, that's just marketing speak, or of course they're going to say that, but what's the, even if someone says, oh, I made this amount of money, your brain would be like, but is that profit or is that revenue? And so is that part of what's enough research that triggers you, makes you feel safe, but doesn't also then open too many other cans of worms, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think for me, like the quality of the testimonial is so important, and being able to kind of Google the person who's left the testimonial and see that they're a real person with a real business. Like I know Leonie Dawson's really good at doing this on her testimonials. Like there's, you can Google the people and then you're like, you could even message that person if you're really wanting to go deep in the research and be like, what was it like doing that course? Like, was it actually legit? Whereas when it's like a first name and nothing else, and you're like, I made 300,000, you're like, oh, go away. Like, no, you didn't. Lies. It's just, I think like I'm automatically very skeptical. Yeah, it's all lies. They're just trying to sell to me. You just want money. So yeah, it's nice to kind of, again, it's that transparency thing. Like, oh, this is a real person. They've even got a Twitter that they like post random crap on, and they like have stories on their Instagram. It's silly things, like just the nitty gritty of like knowing that they're not just made up people.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. I will see you in this round of SMA. I can't wait. And thank you again for your time and your generosity. So, are you a ruler, a connector, or a maverick? Hang on, maybe you're more of a romantic or a celebrity. Take the Money Personality Quiz right now and find out which of the 8 money archetypes you are. And then I'm going to teach you how to profit from your strengths and make money in your business based on your natural personality. Click below and find out more.